Every battle you face in life begins long before it shows up in your circumstances. It begins in your thoughts. The quiet whispers in your mind shape how you see the world, how you respond to challenges, and how you believe in yourself. And too often, those whispers are not voices of strength, but voices of doubt, fear, and defeat. We replay old failures, magnify insecurities, and repeat lies we've come to believe about who we are and what we are capable of. Over time, those thoughts dig grooves in our brain, like deep ruts in a dirt road, and before long, we find ourselves stuck, circling the same patterns again and again. It feels like our mind is out of control, spiraling toward negativity, no matter how much we tell ourselves to stop. The truth is, you cannot live a positive life with a negative mind. You cannot walk in freedom while chained to destructive thoughts. But here's the good news. Your thoughts are not permanent prisons. They can be changed. They can be renewed. They can be rewired. Science tells us that the brain is remarkably adaptable. The thoughts you choose to feed will grow stronger, and the ones you starve will weaken. Scripture echoes this reality, calling us to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. This means that the battle in your head is not one you are powerless to fight. You have the ability, with the right tools and truth, to break free from negative thinking and replace it with thoughts that bring life, peace, and clarity. But it requires awareness. You must first recognize the lies that have been shaping your inner world. You must identify the triggers that keep pulling you back into cycles of fear or shame. And then, step by step, you must learn to replace them with something stronger: truth, gratitude, prayer, praise, and habits that align with the life you long to live. Think about it. How many opportunities have been lost because of a single limiting thought? How many relationships have been strained because of words spoken out of fear or insecurity? How many dreams have been abandoned because you believed the lie that you weren't enough? The war in your mind is not small. It affects everything. But the same way it drags you down, it can also lift you higher. When you change your thinking, you change your life. This is not about pretending struggles don't exist. It's about equipping yourself with a mindset that allows you to meet them with strength instead of surrender. Breaking free from negative thinking will not happen overnight. It's a process of rewiring your brain, of creating new pathways, of choosing each day to feed truth over lies. Some days you will feel progress. Other days you may feel like you're back where you started, but do not be discouraged. Every step you take toward renewing your mind is a step toward freedom. Each small shift in perspective begins to change the way you see yourself and the way you see the world. The lies that once felt so loud lose their grip, and the truths that once seemed distant begin to feel natural. This journey is not about achieving perfection. It's about progress. It's about waking up each morning and saying, I don't have to think the way I used to think. I don't have to live chained to negativity. I have the power to change. And as you take hold of that truth, you'll begin to see shifts not only in your thoughts, but in your emotions, your actions, and your entire life. You'll find peace where there was once chaos. You'll find clarity where there was once confusion. And you'll find the courage to live the life you were meant to live.
Negative thinking rarely begins as a loud shout. It begins as a whisper. A single thought slides into your mind, small and almost unnoticeable. But if left unchecked, that thought grows. It repeats itself, echoing louder with each pass, until it becomes a spiral that pulls you downward. You begin with one moment of self-doubt. I'm not good enough for this job. That thought leads to another. I'll probably fail like I always do. Before long, your mood sinks, your actions slow, and you start living out the very belief you were afraid of. This is the thought spiral, the process by which one negative idea multiplies, spreads, and shapes how you see everything else. What began as a spark becomes a fire. What began as a passing worry becomes a lens you can't remove. The thought spiral is powerful because your brain is designed to look for patterns. Once a negative thought appears, Your mind begins scanning for evidence to support it. If you believe you are unworthy, you'll notice every rejection and forget every compliment. If you believe nothing ever works out for you, you'll magnify each obstacle and ignore the progress you've made. Your brain reinforces the spiral, turning belief into a kind of false reality. This is why negative thinking feels so heavy. It traps you in a cycle where lies feel like truth. And the more you feed it, the deeper the rut becomes. But here's what you must remember. The spiral is not inevitable. Just as thoughts can pull you downward, they can also lift you upward. If one thought of fear can chain you, one thought of truth can free you. The key is to interrupt the spiral before it drags you into patterns of despair. Awareness is the first step. You must learn to notice when a thought has begun to take root. Pause and ask yourself, where is this thought leading me? Is it feeding peace or stealing it? Is it aligning with truth or anchoring me in lies? These questions shine light on the spiral, exposing it before it controls you. Breaking the spiral requires both replacement and repetition. Replacement means choosing to challenge negative thoughts with life-giving truth. For example, when the thought whispers, "You'll never change," you replace it with, "Change is possible one step at a time." When the thought insists, "You are alone," you replace it with, "I am not abandoned, I am supported, I am capable." At first, it may feel unnatural. The lies have been there for so long they sound familiar. But repetition makes truth stronger. Each time you replace a destructive thought, you carve a new pathway in your mind, a new road that makes it easier to travel next time. Think of it like training a muscle. The first time you lift a weight, it feels heavy, awkward, and tiring. But with consistent practice, you grow stronger. And what was once difficult becomes natural. In the same way, replacing negative thoughts with truth requires effort in the beginning, but over time it builds resilience. The spiral that once dragged you down loses its grip because you have built new patterns of thinking. Understanding the thought spiral also means giving yourself grace. You will not win every battle overnight. There will be days when the spiral feels strong, when old lies resurface, when fear or shame shout louder than hope. But progress is not measured by perfection. It is measured by direction. If you're learning to catch the spiral earlier, if you're practicing replacing lies with truth, if you're choosing to take even one step toward healthier thinking, you are breaking free. The battle for your mind is not about pretending negative thoughts don't exist. It is about refusing to let them drive the story of your life. You cannot stop every whisper, but you can choose which ones to listen to. And as you learn to understand the spiral, as you grow in awareness and practice, you will begin to see a shift. Peace will replace anxiety. Hope will silence despair. Clarity will cut through confusion. The spiral will no longer control you because you will have learned how to break its grip.
The most dangerous lies are not the ones shouted at us from the outside. They are the ones whispered quietly within, the ones we come to accept as truth without question. These lies shape how we see ourselves, how we interpret the world, and how we limit our future. They sound like, "I'll never be enough. I always fail. People don't really care about me. My past disqualifies me. I'm too broken to change." At first, they may feel like harmless thoughts, but over time, they become chains. And the more often we repeat them, the stronger those chains become. Believing lies is not a small matter. It is the root of negative thinking. If your mind is a battlefield, then lies are the enemy's sharpest weapons. They distort reality, cloud judgment, and plant seeds of despair where hope should grow. The challenge with lies is that they often sound familiar. They wear the disguise of truth because they echo experiences from our past. Maybe a teacher once told you you'd never amount to much. Maybe a relationship ended with words that tore down your confidence. Maybe your own failures convinced you that you are defined by mistakes. Those voices linger, weaving themselves into your self-talk until you can't tell where the lie ends and where you begin. This is why exposing lies is so important. You cannot fight what you have not identified. You cannot heal from what you refuse to see. The first step is to pause and ask, what am I believing about myself? Is it aligned with truth, or is it a story I've repeated so many times that it feels true? Once you begin to recognize the lies, you'll see how deeply they shape your life. If you believe you are unworthy, you may settle for less than you deserve. If you believe you are destined to fail, you may stop trying before you begin. If you believe your past defines you, you may never step into the future waiting for you. Lies are not passive. They are active forces pulling you away from freedom. But here is the hope. Lies lose their power when they are exposed. The moment you bring them into the light, you strip them of the authority they once had. You begin to see them for what they are, distortions, not destiny. Exposing lies is not about shaming yourself for believing them. It's about reclaiming your mind. It's about saying, this may have been the story I carried, but it is not the story I will continue to live. It is about confronting the voice of fear and replacing it with the voice of truth. For every lie you have believed, there is a greater truth that can set you free. When the lie says, I am not enough, the truth says, I am equipped and growing every day. When the lie says, I can't change, the truth says, transformation is possible, one choice at a time. When the lie says, I am alone, the truth reminds you, I am seen, I am valued, I am not forgotten. The process of exposing lies is ongoing. Old thoughts may resurface, new lies may try to sneak in, and triggers may remind you of past pain. But every time you choose to name the lie and replace it with truth, you weaken its grip. You create new patterns in your brain that make it easier to spot the next one. Over time, what once felt natural, living under the weight of false beliefs, will begin to feel foreign. And what once felt distant, living with peace and clarity, will become your new normal. Remember this, you cannot control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which ones you entertain. Lies may knock at the door, but you do not have to invite them in. By exposing them, naming them, and replacing them with truth, you begin to reclaim the ground of your mind. And in doing so, you break free from the cycle of negative thinking that once held you captive.
One of the most encouraging truths about your mind is this: it can change. For centuries, people believed that the brain was fixed, hardwired at birth, unmovable in its structure. If you struggled with negativity, fear, or doubt, it was assumed that this was simply your nature, something you would carry forever. But research has revealed something extraordinary. Your brain is not rigid, it is plastic. Scientists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself, to form new connections, to adapt, and to learn throughout life. This means that every thought you think creates a path in your mind, and the more you walk that path, the stronger it becomes. Negative thinking, repeated over time, digs deep grooves that make it easy to return to fear, shame, or doubt. But here's the power. Those grooves are not permanent. New ones can be created. Old ones can weaken. Your brain can be rewired. Think of it like walking through a field of tall grass. The first time you step into it, you have to push through, carving out a faint trail. If you stop, the grass grows back and the path disappears. But if you keep walking that same trail day after day, it becomes clear, firm, and easy to travel. That's what happens with your thoughts. The more often you dwell on negativity, the easier it becomes to think negatively. But the same is true of truth, gratitude, and hope. The more you practice them, the stronger those neural pathways become, until they are your brain's default road. This is not theory alone.
Studies show that simple practices, repeating affirmations of truth, practicing gratitude, meditating on what is good, physically reshape the brain. Scans reveal that people who focus on gratitude develop stronger connections in areas linked to resilience and happiness. People who practice mindfulness literally calm the parts of the brain associated with anxiety. Prayer, too, has been shown to light up centers of peace and connection. What this means is that your daily thoughts are not just ideas floating in the air, they are reshaping the architecture of your brain. Every time you choose to replace a lie with truth, every time you pause a spiral of fear with gratitude, every time you speak hope over despair, you are rewiring your mind. But rewiring is not instant. It requires persistence. Just as a field takes time to form a new trail, your brain takes time to create new pathways. At first, it feels unnatural, almost forced. You may think, why doesn't this truth feel real yet? Why do I still feel pulled to the negative? The answer is that you are building strength. Just like lifting weights at the gym, the first repetitions feel awkward, but over time, muscles grow. The same is true for your brain. Every time you choose life-giving thoughts, you are strengthening the muscle of renewal. And every time you resist the pull of old lies, you are weakening their grip. Here's what makes this so powerful. You are not a prisoner of your past patterns. You may have grown up in negativity. You may have lived for years in fear or shame, but your brain can still change. You are not stuck. You are adaptable. You can literally train your mind to think differently. And as your mind changes, so does your life. Because thoughts shape emotions, emotions shape actions, and actions shape destiny. If you change the root, you change the fruit. The science of rewiring your brain confirms what wisdom has said all along. Transformation begins in the mind. You are not helpless in this battle. With awareness, with truth, with consistent practice, you can dig new grooves, build new pathways, and renew your mind. Each thought is a choice, and each choice is a step toward freedom. So be patient with yourself. Don't expect change in a day, but trust that with persistence, you are creating a new default, a new pattern, a new mind that aligns with the life you were meant to live.
The most effective way to defeat a lie is with truth. Lies lose their power the moment they are confronted by something stronger, something immovable. And throughout history, truth has always been the anchor for people caught in the storm of destructive thoughts. Science tells us that affirmations and positive self-talk reshape the brain. Faith tells us that truth sets us free. Together, they remind us that we are not powerless. The negative patterns in our minds may be strong, but they are not unbreakable. They crumble when met with truth. Scripture, for those who draw from it, provides some of the clearest and most powerful words of truth ever spoken. These words do more than comfort, they transform. They remind us that we are not defined by past failures, but by present grace. They declare that we are not abandoned, but deeply loved. They promise that renewal of the mind is not only possible, it is our birthright. And even for those outside a faith tradition, the principle holds: words matter. What you tell yourself, what you allow to take root in your mind, shapes your reality. If you feed yourself lies, you live enslaved. If you feed yourself truth, you live free. The challenge is that lies often feel louder. They echo through memories of failure. They shout through voices of criticism, and they linger in the moments when life feels hardest. But truth is not weak. Truth may whisper at first, but when spoken consistently, it becomes the dominant voice. Replacing lies with truth requires discipline.
It means writing down the words that anchor you. It means repeating them when you wake up, when you face temptation, when you feel fear rising. It means refusing to let your thoughts go unchallenged. For example, when the lie says, "I am powerless to change," truth responds, "I am equipped with strength beyond what I feel right now." When the lie says, "My past defines me," truth says, "My past is a teacher, not my master." When the lie says, "I am not loved," truth says, "My worth is not up for debate." The power of truth is not in ignoring the struggle, but in declaring something greater than the struggle. This practice of replacing lies with truth does not just help emotionally, it rewires the brain. Each repetition strengthens new pathways until the truths that once felt forced become natural. Over time, you begin to believe them, and when you believe differently, you live differently. This is why truth matters so deeply. It is not wishful thinking. It is a weapon, a shield, and a foundation. Imagine your mind as a battlefield. Lies are arrows flying toward you. Truth is the armor that protects you. Without it, you are vulnerable, swayed by every thought that enters. With it, you stand firm. Truth doesn't prevent challenges, but it changes how you face them. It transforms fear into courage, shame into dignity, and despair into hope. The power of truth and Scripture lies in their ability to shift your focus. Instead of rehearsing negativity, you rehearse life. Instead of building ruts of fear, you build highways of peace. The more you anchor yourself in truth, the less room lies have to take root. Slowly, steadily, you find yourself thinking differently, believing differently, and living differently.
Negative thoughts don't always appear out of nowhere. Most of the time, they are sparked by triggers, subtle moments, memories, or circumstances that pull you back into old patterns. A trigger might be a certain place that reminds you of failure, a voice that echoes past criticism, or even the time of day when you feel weakest. It could be scrolling through social media and comparing yourself to others. It could be an offhand comment that stirs an old wound. These moments don't create negativity, but they awaken it, and if we don't notice them, we quickly find ourselves caught in a loop. The same thought repeats, "I'm not enough, I'll never change, why even try?" And before long, you're not just thinking negatively, you're living it. The first step to breaking this cycle is awareness. Start paying attention to your triggers. Ask yourself, when do I feel most vulnerable to negative thoughts? What circumstances seem to send me into a spiral? Are there patterns in the way I think when I'm tired, stressed, or disappointed? Awareness gives you the ability to see the loop before it fully takes hold. Once you can name a trigger, you can prepare for it. The second step is short-circuiting the loop. This means creating a new response in the moment when negativity tries to rise. Instead of letting the thought run its course, you interrupt it with something stronger. For some, this might be speaking truth out loud. For others, it might be a deep breath, a short prayer, or shifting focus toward gratitude. The goal is to break the automatic cycle and remind your mind that it does not have to follow the old path. At first, this takes effort, but over time, your brain learns the new pattern and begins to choose it naturally. Short-circuiting also means removing unnecessary triggers when possible. If a certain habit consistently drags you into comparison, take a break from it. If a particular environment weakens your resolve, limit your exposure. You cannot avoid every trigger, but you can create boundaries that protect your peace. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. You are choosing to prioritize your mental freedom over old cycles of defeat. It is important to remember that breaking loops is not about controlling every thought, but about controlling your response. You will still face moments of negativity, but with practice, those moments no longer define you.
The spiral that once lasted hours may last only minutes. The lie that once felt overwhelming begins to lose its voice. Slowly, steadily, you find yourself moving forward rather than circling the same old ground. Think of it like rerouting electricity. Negative thoughts are like wires carrying current in the same destructive direction. By short-circuiting, you cut the flow and redirect it into a healthier path. Each time you do this, you weaken the old loop and strengthen the new one. And the more often you practice, the easier it becomes. The key is persistence. Triggers will come. Negative loops will try to reappear, but you are not powerless. You can notice them, interrupt them, and redirect them. And over time, the very moments that once dragged you down become opportunities to grow stronger, to think clearer, and to live freer.
Freedom from negative thinking isn't built in grand, dramatic moments. It's built in the quiet, consistent habits of daily life. The mind is shaped not by what we do once in a while, but by what we do again and again. The routines and rhythms that either feed despair or cultivate peace. If you want to renew your mind, you must give it daily nourishment. Just as your body weakens without healthy food and rest, your mind falters without intentional practices that keep it clear, grounded, and strong. The first daily habit is awareness. Start each morning by checking in with yourself. Before reaching for a phone or rushing into tasks, pause and notice your thoughts. Ask, what am I carrying into this day? What mindset am I beginning with? This habit sets the tone, reminding you that you are not a passive observer of your thoughts. You are their gatekeeper. When you begin in awareness, you catch negativity early and replace it with truth before it takes root. The second habit is gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most powerful antidotes to negativity. Each day, write down 3 things you are thankful for, big or small. Over time, this practice reshapes your brain to look for good, rather than fixating on what's wrong. Gratitude trains your mind to notice abundance instead of lack, progress instead of failure, blessings instead of burdens. What begins as a discipline soon becomes a reflex, rewiring your perspective toward hope. The third habit is replacing lies with truth. Keep a list of truths close at hand, phrases, scriptures, affirmations that directly counter the lies you most often believe. Speak them out loud in the moments when doubt rises. Repeat them until they feel real. Each repetition strengthens new neural pathways, making truth easier to access than old patterns of fear. This daily replacement is not about pretending problems don't exist. It's about equipping yourself with the perspective to face them. The fourth habit is renewal through silence and reflection. In a world filled with noise, your mind needs quiet to reset. Just 10 minutes of stillness through prayer, meditation, or simple breathing can calm anxious thoughts and restore clarity. This practice reminds you that you are more than your stress, more than your circumstances. It grounds you in presence, giving you strength to respond with calm instead of panic. The fifth habit is connection. Negative thinking thrives in isolation. Sharing your struggles with trusted friends, mentors, or community members brings perspective and accountability. Daily, choose connection over withdrawal. A simple conversation can shift your perspective, reminding you that you are not alone in this battle. Finally, the sixth habit is celebrating progress. Too often we overlook the small victories, the spiral caught earlier, the trigger avoided, the truth spoken instead of the lie. Celebrate them. Acknowledge that growth is happening. Each small win strengthens your resolve and proves to your brain that change is possible. Daily habits may feel ordinary, but over time they create extraordinary transformation. Just as negative thinking becomes easier with repetition, so does renewal. Each morning, you choose awareness, gratitude, truth, reflection, connection, and celebration. You are carving a new path.
You are training your mind to expect hope instead of despair, peace instead of chaos, and clarity instead of confusion.
When the weight of negative thinking presses hardest, few tools are as powerful as prayer and praise. They do more than shift your mood, they shift your focus. Prayer is the act of turning your thoughts upward, away from the spiral of fear and doubt, and anchoring them in something greater than yourself. Praise is the practice of declaring gratitude and hope, even in the middle of difficulty. Together, they create a mindset that is not controlled by circumstances, but shaped by perspective. Prayer is often misunderstood as something reserved for emergencies or ritual, but at its core, it is simply conversation, honest, vulnerable words that bring clarity to your mind and peace to your heart. When you pray, you are acknowledging that you don't have to carry the weight of every burden alone. Prayer slows your thoughts, calms your emotions, and reminds you that you are not powerless. Even science confirms this. People who practice prayer or meditation regularly show reduced anxiety, lower stress, and increased resilience. Prayer doesn't erase problems, but it equips your mind to face them with strength. Praise is equally transformative. It is the act of choosing gratitude and hope in the face of negativity. When you praise, you take the focus off what is broken and highlight what is still good. You remind yourself of progress, of blessings, of reasons to be thankful. Praise interrupts the spiral of negative thinking by refusing to let despair dominate the narrative. And the more often you practice it, the easier it becomes to spot goodness even in the midst of challenges. Both prayer and praise work because they are forms of replacement. Instead of rehearsing lies, you rehearse truth. Instead of repeating fear, you repeat gratitude. Instead of amplifying problems, you amplify perspective. The mind cannot dwell on despair while actively speaking words of hope. This shift is not denial, it is training. You are teaching your brain to focus on life rather than loss, on possibilities rather than limitations. Consider how different your day feels when you begin with a moment of prayer or praise. Instead of rushing into noise, you start with clarity. Instead of rehearsing worries, you rehearse strength. Over time, these practices build new grooves in your mind, pathways of peace and resilience. They give you the ability to face criticism without crumbling, setbacks without despair, and uncertainty without fear. The beauty of prayer and praise is that they are available anywhere, anytime. You don't need special words or perfect conditions. In a moment of stress, you can pause, breathe, and speak hope. In a season of heaviness, you can choose to list even one thing you're grateful for. These small acts are not small in their impact. They reframe your mind, rewire your perspective, and reinforce your freedom. Breaking free from negative thinking requires tools you can use daily. Prayer and praise are among the simplest and most powerful. They connect you to something bigger than your fears, remind you of truths stronger than lies, and cultivate joy that negativity cannot steal.
The ultimate goal of breaking free from negative thinking is not just to silence destructive thoughts, but to live with peace and clarity. Peace is not the absence of problems, it is the ability to remain steady in the middle of them. Clarity is not knowing every answer, it is the ability to see the next step with confidence. Together, they create a life marked not by chaos, but by calm strength, not by confusion, but by direction. And the truth is, peace and clarity are not reserved for a few. They are available to anyone willing to renew their mind. Peace begins with perspective. When your thoughts are ruled by fear or worry, every challenge feels larger than it is. But when your mind is grounded, you begin to see things differently. You recognize that setbacks are temporary, that failures are not final, and that every storm eventually passes. This perspective doesn't erase difficulty, but it reduces its power over you. Peace is found not in controlling every outcome, but in learning to control your response, and that begins with what you think. Clarity comes from alignment. When your thoughts are cluttered with lies, your vision becomes blurred.
You can't see clearly because the lens is distorted, but when you replace lies with truth, the fog begins to lift. You start to recognize opportunities instead of only obstacles. You notice progress where before you only saw defeat. You hear your own voice, not the voice of fear, not the echoes of the past, but the quiet, steady direction of your purpose. That clarity gives you confidence to make decisions without being paralyzed by doubt. Peace and clarity are also strengthened by simplicity. Our world is loud, filled with constant noise and distraction. If you're not intentional, your mind becomes overcrowded and negativity finds room to thrive. Living with peace means learning to quiet that noise, setting aside time each day to reflect, to breathe, to be present. Living with clarity means focusing on what matters most, not scattering your energy in 1,000 directions. Simplicity creates space for wisdom to speak and for peace to settle in. One of the greatest gifts of peace and clarity is how they impact those around you. When you live from a calm and centered place, your relationships change. You no longer react impulsively, but respond thoughtfully. You no longer drain others with constant negativity, but lift them with presence and steadiness. Peace is contagious, and clarity inspires confidence. The transformation in your mind ripples outward, shaping families, friendships, workplaces, and communities. Living with peace and clarity is not about achieving a perfect state where nothing ever shakes you. It is about building resilience so that when life does shake you, you do not break. It is about cultivating a mindset that allows you to keep moving forward, step by step, with a sense of calm, even in chaos. It is about knowing that your worth is not tied to circumstances, and that your direction is not lost when life takes unexpected turns. This kind of life does not come overnight. It is the result of the consistent practices you've built: awareness, gratitude, truth, renewal, prayer, and praise. Each one contributes to the steady foundation of peace and clarity. And over time, what once felt impossible to live free from constant negativity becomes your new normal. You wake up no longer bracing for the spiral, but expecting peace. You step into decisions not paralyzed by confusion, but guided by clarity. And in that place, you not only survive life, you begin to truly live it.
The journey of breaking free from negative thinking is not about pretending life is easy, and it is not about forcing yourself to feel happy all the time. It is about reclaiming your mind from patterns that have kept you stuck for too long. It is about refusing to let lies define you, refusing to let fear dictate your choices, and refusing to let the past write your future. The battle for your mind is real, but so is your power to win it. You are not condemned to repeat the same spirals forever. You are not destined to live under the weight of shame, doubt, or despair. Freedom is possible, and it begins with one choice: the choice to believe that your thoughts can change, and that when they do, your life will change with them. Every time you recognize a lie and replace it with truth, you are reclaiming ground. Every time you catch a trigger and short-circuit the spiral, you are breaking chains. Every time you practice gratitude instead of grumbling, prayer instead of panic, praise instead of despair, you are training your mind to live free. These moments may feel small, but they are not. They are the building blocks of transformation. They are proof that progress is happening, even on days when it feels slow. Freedom is not about achieving perfection. You will still face negative thoughts. You will still feel doubt. You will still hear old lies try to resurface. But freedom is the ability to see those thoughts for what they are and choose differently. It is the power to pause, to redirect, to speak life where death once ruled. Freedom is knowing that your worth is not tied to your failures, that your future is not limited by your past, and that your mind is not a prison, but a place of possibility.
The call to freedom is a call to persistence. It is a daily choice to rise, to fight, to believe. Some days you will feel strong. Other days you will feel weak. But strength is not proven in never falling. It is proven in getting up again and again. Each time you rise, you weaken the grip of negativity and strengthen the pathways of peace. Over time, the life you once thought was impossible, a life of clarity, of joy, of steady peace, becomes the life you live. So as this journey closes, remember this: you are not powerless. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not destined to live in chains. You have the tools, the truth, and the strength to think differently, to believe differently, and to live differently. The war in your mind can be won. And when it is, your life will no longer be defined by negativity, but by freedom, peace, and clarity. That freedom is yours to claim. The question is, will you step into